All right, good morning. I'd like to welcome you all to the Burlington Fire Department. This is Station 6, located in the western part of Burlington, which we also cover part of Guilford County that's in our city limits here. My name is Daniel Schaffner. I am Battalion Chief of EMS and the Public Information Officer. If you need me to spell my name for your records, it's D-A-N-I-E-L, and my last name is Schaffner, S-H-O-F-F-N-E-R. Today, to my right, I've got our Deputy Chief, Matt Lawrence, our Interim Fire Chief on the end, Ken Briscoe, and our Assistant Chief of Operations, Greg Britt. To my left, I've got Chief Bobby Carmen of Guilford County Emergency Services Fire Division, Chief Michael Townsend, Guilford County Emergency Services Fire Division, Chief Leon Apple of the Witsit Fire Department, Deputy Director of Guilford County Emergency Services, Kyle Pascal, and Scott Mothersbaugh, PIO for Guilford County Emergency Services. And again, appreciate all the media coming here today. As you all are aware, we had an incident Saturday night, and we received a lot of phone calls Saturday night and through the day yesterday, so we felt it best just to bring you all together, provide you information and updates on what had happened and the conditions of the firefighters that were injured at this time. So just to recap, Saturday evening around 5:15, there was a call for a medical emergency at 557 Brycewood Drive, and that's in the city limits of Burlington in Guilford County, and the medical emergency was for a cardiac arrest victim on top of a roof. When just a little bit about the protocol for why we have so many departments represented here. The Burlington Fire Department contracts with the Witsit Fire Department to have a quicker response in that area. And also Guilford County Emergency Services Fire Division, they have a rescue apparatus staffed with 3 to 4 firefighters in that area as well, and they typically respond to cardiac arrest calls, pin-in, vehicle accidents, structure fires, or any other unusual circumstances. So upon dispatch around 5:15 Saturday afternoon, our Engine 6 from this station, Engine 31 from the Witsit Fire Department, and Rescue 50 from Guilford County Emergency Services, along with Guilford County EMS, were dispatched to this address again for a cardiac arrest victim on top of a structure. The Witsit Fire Department arrived within about 3 minutes, and they began CPR on this patient on top of the roof. When dealing with a cardiac arrest victim, what is of utmost importance is to begin chest compressions and deliver shock via defibrillator as quickly as possible, and that's what these firefighters were aiming to do. Anytime firefighters respond to an incident, there's a calculated risk which they look at to determine the best outcome for their patient, or in the case of a victim trapped in a fire, what their outcome could be if they make entry to try to retrieve them. There's always risk involved to the firefighters in many things that we do, but at this time when they arrived, they began CPR on top of the roof. They actually delivered 2 sets of shocks via the defibrillator, and then they were attempting to move the patient to the ground to a safer environment as well. Our Engine 6, Engine 31 from Witsit Fire Department, and Rescue 50 were all on scene at that time. When the structure collapsed, 6 firefighters were injured and transported following that incident. 1 firefighter from Burlington was injured but treated on the scene and not transported. And of course, the patient they went to provide aid to initially also fell. They continued providing aid to that patient. They then called for additional fire and EMS resources. The Gibsonville Fire Department was then dispatched and responded to assist as well, and a number of Guilford County EMS units then responded. Just to give you a brief update, I'm not going to release firefighters' names of the injured, but again, Burlington Fire Department, we had 1 firefighter that was injured, treated at the scene, not transported. The Witsit Fire Department had 4 firefighters that were injured. Those injuries ranged from fractured wrist, lacerations of the head, that firefighter received stitches, and then there was another firefighter that was taken to the hospital for evaluation, treated and released from there. 3 of the firefighters were transported to Alamance Regional Medical Center. 3 of the firefighters were transported to Moses Cone. 2 Guilford County Emergency Services firefighters fell and were injured as well. And again, one of those remains in the hospital. The other one has been released, and I will allow Guilford County Emergency Services personnel to speak on their behalf. If any of them would like to come up and talk now, I'll step aside and give you the floor.
Bobby Carmen, spelling B-O-B-B-Y, Carmen C-A-R-M-O-N, interim fire marshal, Guilford County. As Daniel stated, 2 of the personnel injured was from our Rescue 50 unit. They were both transported to Cone Hospital. One was released and not admitted. The other was admitted for his injuries and has since had surgery and is now recovering. He still remains in the hospital there. We would list him as non-life-threatening but serious injuries at this time. But he's under recovery at this time. The other firefighter said has been released. No major injuries upon review and examination in the hospital. So.
Thank you. And now we'd be happy to open up to the media. If you guys have any questions right now of us or any of the agencies up here, we'd be happy to address those.
Yeah, I mean, what about the patient? What happened with them during the fall?
I'll turn that over to Guilford County EMS, since it was an emergency medical call for service, and Deputy Director Pascal can come up and speak to that.
Good morning, I'm Kyle Pascal, K-Y-L-E, P-A-S-C-H-A-L. I'm the Deputy Director of Guilford County Emergency Services. On Saturday evening, we had an initial call for a cardiac arrest patient who was in cardiac arrest on the roof. We initially sent one of our quick response paramedic units and a paramedic unit out of the city of Greensboro. Upon arrival, that was about the time that firefighters suffered through the collapse. They had initiated resuscitative efforts prior to our arrival. After the collapse, the patient was extricated from the debris and resuscitative efforts were continued for approximately another 45 minutes. Following that resuscitative effort, the patient did not respond positively and was pronounced dead on the scene. Any other questions?
For the patient who passed on the scene, do we know if it was due to the cardiac arrest or was it an impact of the cardiac arrest and then also the roof collapsing?
The indications currently are it was from the cause of the patient's death was from cardiac arrest. So again, we had an initial quick response paramedic unit and a Guilford County EMS unit out of Greensboro. Upon the collapse, or right after the collapse, we increased that response to a supervisor unit and 5 EMS units, again, all out of the city of Greensboro. And so we had plenty of resources on scene to both take care of the firefighters and the patient. We did everything we could in the resuscitative effort for the patient, but again, the patient succumbed to his condition.
Why was that person on the roof?
They were, yes.
Some more limited knowledge of the events, but it appears that the homeowner and the other gentleman were there building outside building at the rear of the structure, and the building in turn was under construction at that point.
So the building that collapsed was under construction?
Yes,
This is a 1-story or 2-story building?
1 story.
I wanted to ask about one of the firefighters. So we don't have exact clarity on which representation he's from, but we heard something about a potential back injury. It could have been a spine. I just want to see if that sounds familiar to anyone.
As I said, we have 4 firefighters from Winston Fire Department who were treated and released. 1 treated on scene, not transported from Burlington, and the other 2 was from our what we call Rescue 50, so Guilford County Emergency Services. One of those was treated and released from the hospital. The other does still remain in the hospital. He has asked that we do not address his injury. He may have his own release forthcoming, but he did request we not release his name or his injuries at this time. But he did have surgery post-event and is currently in recovery at Moses Cone.
Are y'all going to release the name of the patient who died?
I don't plan to.
No, we don't intend to do that.
I wanted to ask just you guys' thoughts on something like this happening. We know that doing what you do, it's an active service and you are going to help others, but then when your personnel gets involved, that, you know, brings the situation down. So just your thoughts on knowing that, you know, your men, they were there to help, and then this tragic incident happened on all fronts.
Okay, I'll take that. Anytime firefighters respond, in particularly to high-impact calls, cardiac arrest events, there are times of high emotions anyway. And when something happens to the responders, in addition to that even further that takes it even further emotionally for everyone involved. However, one thing I can say about the fire service, emergency medical services, and even law enforcement is we're all there to serve the public, and even when something happens to us, while it's heavy and hard, we're all there to still serve the public, and we're going to all pick up the pieces even on scene and do our best to continue treating the patients that we're there, we're responding for, and look after each other. And again, that's why at the time of the collapse, those responders that were on scene did call for additional resources from the Gibsonville Fire Department, and several additional resources from Guilford County EMS responded. Also at Burlington Police Department, they had several officers on scene as well, assisting. So again, in those times, you do call for more resources, and they are there to respond to assist any way they can. We'll also be further debriefing our folks as well as Guilford County theirs as we go through this week, just because these are traumatic events, not only for the cardiac arrest victim and their family, but the responder community as well when we have people get injured.
And just so, I mean, you guys saw the building and then you called in for more resources. You may have gone over it. How fast was it for all those resources to get there before you started going up onto the building?
I do have some times available for the first arriving units, and if there's anything further, we can look into that. But the first unit to arrive was Engine 31 from the Witsett Fire Department, and their travel time was 3 minutes from their station, and they were en route in less than a minute from the time they were dispatched. Our Engine 6 and Rescue 50 both arrived 7 minutes afterwards, after the initial call, so they were there just 4 minutes after Engine 31. And then Guilford County EMS unit arrived about the time that the building collapsed. And again, the fire personnel were attempting to move the patient down to the ground level at that time when the building collapsed. And, go ahead.
Was there any indication that the building was going to collapse? And I know you mentioned debriefing, but with an event like this with so many people involved, is there any new protocols that would be put in place?
I'll let you speak to it since your personnel were involved.
To the best of, obviously I was not on scene at the time of the event, but to the best of all information is there was no precursor of a structural collapse other than the fact that it's a building under construction. They did just as we normally do in following protocol, initial stabilization of the cardiac arrest patient, give initial treatment, following AHA guidelines. Once they start CPR, initiate shocks, stuff. As I said, they were preparing to move the patient off what would be normal, get them to a safer environment with them, realizing that there's some inherent danger. So once they start initial stabilization of the patient, they were preparing to start moving them off the roof, following protocol to get them to a safer location. But there was no precursor. From talking to all the responders on scene, it was more or less they were doing a thing, and all of a sudden it just went. And that was no warning.
Are you able to share the age and also the gender of the victim involved? Because we can't get the name.
Yes, the age of the patient was 54 years old. He was a male. And to further expound on what Chief Carmen said, we take every incident that involves our employees and we review that incident as for opportunities to make our service and our personnel safer for the future, and that will be done in this case as well.
Has there ever been an instance or a scenario where something like this has happened before? Is this like a first of its kind in a way?
To my knowledge, this is the first incident of this type that has occurred in our jurisdiction, and just the same can be said for Guilford County as well. So this was definitely a unique situation and very unusual.
like, we're always talking to, whether it's law enforcement, in every field, we're feeling staffing shortages. So I wanted to ask, because there's so many different agencies involved, in any way does this compromise, or just the amount of people that you guys have working for the different fire departments?
One thing I can say is that everyone, all these departments and agencies were fully staffed on Saturday, so it did not impact that. It obviously does have an impact on some of the personnel being out. I'll turn that over to these other agencies if they would like to speak to how they will address having some personnel out for a period of time. But I can say for the city of Burlington, our firefighter that was injured, he was treated, released on the scene, and back at work, and is at work, will be at work tomorrow as well. So if you would like to speak to that for your personnel.
For our personnel emergency services, also, we will have one person who will be out extended. The other person should be returning hopefully in the near future. We do have enough staffing. We are a full paid service there, so we should be able to manage that accordingly. For the Wichita Fire Department, they're a combination of paid and volunteer staffing. It will definitely have some impacts on them. Hopefully, we'll have one returning soon, should have the other two, and before too long, we'll get them back full staff, but it will have some effect over the next few weeks for them. But at the same time, they are still able to arrange their staff, and there's no reduction of coverage or service to their service as well, so.
And just to confirm again, it was 6 people taken to the hospital and then 1 additional person checked out on scene who did not have to be taken to the hospital. So 7 total.
7 firefighters total that were injured, plus the original patient that was there and deceased. Yes, our firefighter from Burlington was treated on the scene and released, not transported. So a total of 6 transported, 3 to Alamance Regional Medical Center, 3 to Moses County, Greensboro.
I guess my last question is, when you guys were looking at the building, did you understand that there was a risk that it would fall, or was this a complete surprise when it fell?
Of course, they looked at it and seen it was a building under construction, but I think of the state and the first visual acuities was, it probably appeared to be in close to a complete state. So I don't know if there's any visual acuities that really would have told them there was any structural issues or anything like that upon initial assessment. Obviously, things happen quick. The focus was to the patient on the roof. There was nothing about a structural issue. And I think in appearance, the building looked like it was very much in the last stages of being completed at that time, so.
I think you may have touched on this before, but I just want to make sure. How come firefighters and first responders couldn't move the patient first, then treat them?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned earlier, when you are responding to a cardiac arrest victim, time is of the essence, and there is some time involved in moving that patient. So the focus upon their arrival was to begin CPR as quickly as possible and deliver shocks via defibrillator as quick as possible, because that is what's going to give the patient the best chance to be resuscitated. And that was the focus of the responders at that time.
Okay, thank you.
And further to that, on the rescue side, to remove a patient from a roof is not as simple as just grab and go. So there is equipment, there is mechanisms, and there is again, like procedures and policies and so forth to how to get them off the roof safely. The goal, prevent any further injury to patient or any responders. So with that, they were treating immediate life threats for CPR, and at the same time starting to do the preparation and get equipment and items in place to move. So if you wait to remove them, you've been multiple minutes before you receive appropriate care. So we do not want to delay that care.
I have one last. It was about the patient. Do we know if the patient was a homeowner or if it was someone that they hired? Because the timing is like 5:15, so just wondering if that was like a hired person.
Well, we don't know a whole lot of details, but the patient was not the homeowner. I do know that. It's my understanding he was there helping the homeowner. But other than that, we don't know any more details than that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time? I'd like to thank you all again for coming this morning, and we can put out a written summary of this this afternoon. So we appreciate your time, and again, if you have any questions, please let us know.
Thank you.